Chapter 14C. I like the Grand Doctor from London because he made them take the iron thing off, said Mary at last. Did he say you were going to die? No. What did he say? Well, he didn't whisper, Colin answered. Perhaps he knew I hated whispering. I heard him say one thing quite loud. He said, the lad might live if he would make up his mind to do it. Put him in the humor. It sounded as if he was in a temper. I'll tell you who would put you in the humor. Perhaps, said Mary, reflecting. She felt as if she would like this thing to be settled one way or another. I believe Deacon would. He's always talking about live things. He never talks about dead things or things that are ill. He's always looking up at the sky to watch the birds flying, or looking down at the earth to see something growing. He has such round blue eyes, and they are so wide open with looking about, and laughs such a big laugh with his wide mouth, and his cheeks are as red as cherries. She pulled her stool nearer to the sofa, and her expression quite changed at the remembrance of the wide curving mouth and the wide open eyes. See here, she said, don't let us talk about dying. I don't like it. Let us talk about living. Let us talk and talk about Deacon, and then we'll look at your pictures. It was the best thing she could have said. To talk about Deacon meant to talk about the moor, and about the cottage and the 14 people who lived in it on 16 shillings a week, and the children who got fat on the moor grass like ponies, and about Deacon's mother and the skipping rope, and the moor with the sun on it, and the pale green points sticking up out of the black sod. And it was all so alive that Mary talked more than she had ever talked before. And Colin both talked and listened as he had never done before either. And they both began to laugh over nothings, as children will do when they're happy together. And they laughed so that in the end they were making as much noise as if they had been two ordinary, healthy, natural 10-year-old creatures, instead of a hard, little, unloving girl and a sickly boy who believed that he was going to die. They enjoyed themselves so much that they forgot the pictures, and they forgot about the time. They'd been laughing quite loudly over Ben Weatherstaff and his robin, and Colin was actually sitting up as if he had forgotten he had a week back, when he suddenly remembered something. Do you know, there is one thing we have never once thought of, he said. We're cousins. It seemed so strange that they had talked so much and never remembered this simple thing, that they laughed more than ever, because they'd gotten into the humor to laugh at just about anything. In the midst of the fun, the door opened, and in walked Dr. Craven and Miss Medlock. Dr. Craven started in actual alarm, and Miss Medlock almost fell back because he'd accidentally bumped against her. Good Lord! Exclaimed poor Miss Medlock, with her eyes almost staring out of her head. Good Lord! What is this? Said Dr. Craven, coming forward. What does it mean? Then Mary was reminded of the boy Rajah again. Colin answered as if neither the doctor's alarm nor Miss Medlock's terror were of the slightest consequence. He was as little disturbed or frightened as if an elderly cat or dog had just walked in the room. This is my cousin, Mary Lennox, he said. I asked her to come and talk to me. I like her. She must come and talk to me whenever I send for her. Dr. Craven turned reproachfully to Miss Medlock. Oh, sir, she panted, I don't know how this happened. There's not a servant on the place that dare talk. They all have their orders. Nobody told her anything, said Colin. She heard me crying, and she found me herself. I'm glad she came. Don't be silly, Medlock. Mary saw that Dr. Craven did not look pleased, but it was quite plain that he dare not oppose his patient. He sat down by Colin, and he felt of his pulse. I'm afraid there's been too much excitement. Excitement is not good for you, my boy, he said. I should be excited if she's kept away, said Colin, his eyes beginning to look dangerously sparkling. I am better. She makes me better. The nurse must bring up her tea with mine. We shall have tea together. Miss Medlock and Dr. Craven looked at each other in a troubled way, but there was evidently nothing to be done. Well, he does look rather better, sir, said Miss Medlock, but thinking the matter over, he did look better this morning before she came into the room. She came into the room last night. She stayed with me a long time. She sang a Hindustani song to me, and it made me go to sleep, said Colin. I was better when I wakened up, and I wanted my breakfast. I want my tea now. Tell nurse, Medlock. Dr. Craven did not stay very long. He talked to the nurse for a few minutes, and then he came into the room and he said a few words of warning to Colin. He must not talk too much. He must not forget that he is ill. He must not forget that he's very easily tired. Mary thought that there seemed to be a number of uncomfortable things that he was not to forget. Colin looked fretful, and he kept his strange, black-lashed eyes fixed on Dr. Craven's face. I want to forget it, he said at last. She makes me forget it. That's why I want her. Dr. Craven did not look happy when he left the room. He gave a puzzled glance at the little girl sitting on the large stool. She had become a stiff, silent child again as soon as he had entered, and he could not see what the attraction was. The boy actually did look brighter, however, and he sighed rather heavily as he went down the corridor. They're always wanting me to eat things when I don't want to, said Colin, as the nurse brought in the tea and put it on the table by the sofa. Now, if you'll eat, I will. Those muffins look so nice and hot. Tell me about Rajas.